Hello, and you're welcome to yet another edition of Clevenard Open Project Discussion on clevenard.com/CV. My name is Frank Halide Media, and like always, Clevenard Media is vetted with a vision to unite the world of African tourism for the growth of the continent. All right, please, if you are here to sign up with us, please do so on www.clevenard.com. All right, we're still on a series of business opportunities and the role of the media, culture, fashion, tourism in the African diaspora markets. All right, and my guests on this evening are Pastor Polinus Insiri, who is a former commissioner for information and communication, Rivers State, and also the executive director of the Gracia Center for Media Rights and Education, Port Harcourt. Welcome to the program, Mr. Insiri.
Thank you, Franca. Thank you.
Then I have Mr. Adeniran Makinde, Secretary General, Association of Nigeria Theatre Arts Practitioners, NAMTA. We welcome Mr. Makinde.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, and then last but certainly not the least, to make my panel this evening is a well-known face on this program, Mr. Allen St. Onjin. He is a former Minister for Tourism, Seychelles. Welcome to the program, Mr. Allen, once again.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Franca. Thank you.
Good to have you on board. All right. Subsequently, I will have, okay, let's talk about talking about the media and the role it has to play in the development of African tourism sector. I would have liked to start with the media, but today I'm not going to do that. I'd like us to talk a brief analysis, all right, about the importance of tourism, all right? Why do we need to develop the tourism sector in Africa? How important is it that African tourism and its sectors is developed? Mr. Allen, I will need you to start up with that.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it is a question that everybody asks, why tourism? Yes. But I think that if we analyze the importance of an industry where everybody can participate in, large or small, any creed, any religious denominations, any political affiliation, everybody can get involved in one way or another. It is the one industry that can put money directly in the pockets of the inhabitants of the country receiving it. When we look at Africa with its 54 states, every single one of them has hidden cachets or hidden USPs that tourism can benefit the continent if they were put forward, if these key USPs were put forward. When we know that we have a continent with so much attraction, actually every possible attraction, from sunset and sand to wildlife, to forests, to game reserves, to waterfalls, to pyramids, which I discovered just the other day. When we see all these attractions, we wonder why the African continent is still so far backwards in the number of tourism, when we say tourism, that crosses borders on the international setup, and that is recorded by the UNWTO. We know that we have everything. We know that we must work as a continent, united in the spirit of wanting to make the continent work and to benefit the economies of our 54 states. I think it is great to be able to have the tourism as an industry. It's not just an activity. It is an industry in its own right. And if it is an industry, we must put our might, or as Africa would say, the roar of the lion, behind this industry to make it succeed. Can we make it succeed? Yes, we can. And we should do it for Africa.
Thank you so much. Mr. Makinde, I don't know if you have one or two things to add to what Mr. Allen just said, the importance of developing the tourism sector in Africa.
Well, Mr. Allen, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
He said so much about what it is. The one important point that he made, right, that very important of so many things, is that product that puts money right in the pocket of the people who are directly concerned. And this is a great attribute. Every country that is concerned in tourism the financial gains are not in any way ambiguous, and it trickles down to the last person. Okay, let me make an example of Idori Hill. Idori Hill is in Ondo State. You know, it's a village, but there is that Idori Hill in that village, Idori town. Do you know that Idori Hill alone is the biggest financial gains for the inhabitants of that Idori? So if that Idori Hill is not developed, I'm just making an example, one example of so many that you have across Ondo State.
Okay.
If that one is not developed, right, the inhabitants of that village, right, it's like their business, their economy is grounded. And that's how it is when you look at it. And that's why I say I love the way he has put tourism, you know, and the twin tourism don't run alone without the entertainment aspect of it. There is no way. And this is one big mistake that Africa, those who are running tourism in Africa and are making. You don't drive tourism alone without taking along the entertainment part side of it. No, it will fall. Yeah. Okay. Let me just wait there. As we go further.
All right, we'll still continue on that certainly. But Mr. Mekide, I will appreciate if you increase the volume of your, should I say your voice now, because I could barely hear you, but I think I was able to pick out one or two things from what you said, okay, which is tourist attractions and destinations in Africa, in Ondo State, like you mentioned. All right, a few days back, I was talking with Mr. Insirim, and he mentioned the same thing, that there is a beach in a river state in Port Harcourt, and there are other tourist attractions as well that most of us are not even aware of. I want to say that Nigeria, Africa is blessed with numerous of things of that nature. Mr. Nsere, please, I need to talk on that. Tourist attractions in River State. Do we really have any that could attract people to these states?
Thank you very much. Let me join my colleagues to reaffirm that tourism is a huge market. It stimulates the economy, reduces employment, reduces crime rates, and then creates that opportunity for inhabitants of the area to be productive. Now, in River State, I told you off camera the other day, in River State, we have a rich culture that runs across the 23 local government areas that could serve as a tourist calendar for a whole year. We have a monument like that of King Jaja of Opopo that, you know, if you must read world history, you must know King Jaja of Opopo, there in Opopo town. In Andoni, we have a large stretch of sand beach that, if it is well developed, can serve as a tourist center, you know, for the state. Also in that Andoni, we have a colony of elephants, white elephants. Till tomorrow, we have a colony of white elephants that could be, you know, made transformed into a game reserve that people from all over the world will come and see. You know, elephants are getting extinct, but here in River State, we have a colony in Andoni. So
sorry, please, you mean live elephants?
Yes.
Wow.
Andoni, yeah.
Go ahead, please.
But what it just takes a political will and an understanding of the huge investment that can come from tourism for us to, you know, latch into this this kind of a huge market. We have the challenge of everybody looking at oil resources. Now, even people are talking about blue economy beyond oil. But you see, our policymakers in the country are yet to begin to understand global trends as it relates to this market.
All right, thank you so much for that. But you just made mention of having the political will to be able to know what how this sector can actually favor us. And for Mr. Allen, he was a one-time tourism minister in his country, just Seychelles. And then there are stories from there rather that Seychelles is a very good location for tourism. We've had your success stories there, Mr. Allen. All right, now having a political will, let's balance it up with your own example, the Seychelles example that you use to promote tourism in your sector. Please let's hear your story.
I think I've listened to our two colleagues, and both are right. And both what you say touches the core value that the continent needs to absorb, to embrace, to make its tourism work. When we say the political will, yes. The government of the day must want tourism. Like if you had oil, they must want to extract oil, otherwise you don't get oil. If they are in anything else, I mean spacecraft, then they need to want to send a rocket, otherwise they can't do it. So, but Africa has tourism. The political will doesn't mean each and every state in Africa, they believe in it, but are they really putting it in the forefront to say that this is an industry? But I said, Franca, in a previous interview that we did like this, our united body of Africa, the African Union, must lead the way. It must be able to say, as much as it has a desk for mining and a desk for coup d'etats or a desk for something else, it must also have a desk, a dedicated desk for tourism. If tourism is the one industry that touches the 54 states, it must have a dedicated desk for tourism. And I think then what we need to do, and I take the statement made by Mr. Nisrim Paulinus, I think the statement that it's made, we have these meetings of the African Union, but have we had a meeting of the African Union with all tourism ministers to say, how do we embrace it as a continent? How do we bring that desire to make this industry that the 54 states of Africa has, how do we make this the industry for Africa? Not an activity for Africa, an activity that some of us do, some of us don't do, but as an industry for the continent. If we can achieve this, Africa will make a big stride forward, because the continent at its highest level, either the head of state or the minister responsible for tourism, will embrace it and will go down the line. Often when we talk tourism, we believe it is the hotel man or the airline man, and it is not this at all. It's the country that is tourism. The country welcomes the tourists from the airport, and then to clear it fast so that you don't have too much cumbersome approach. The taxis are well organized, the meet and greet is well done, the roads are good, the infrastructure is well done. When you have this, the basis for tourism is set. We just then need to prepare all the side roads to ensure that each one benefits from it. Handicraft, the fishermen, the vegetable or fruit gardens, everything depends on tourism at the end, because it enhances their ability to sell what they are growing or to sell what they are manufacturing as handicraft. I think as a continent, and I pray that we move faster than too slow. The African Union must not just discuss when there's a coup, we'll not just discuss about oil or these big industries that benefits a few countries and not everybody, that benefits a few companies and not every man and woman of Africa. Tourism can benefit everybody. So if it can benefit everybody, don't you think we should be looking at it as a continent and embracing it as a continent to say, yes, we can, because that benefits every single African in the mountain, in the jungle, on the beach, in a boat. Everybody can benefit. God has blessed us. I mean, you talk about the river population or river districts that has elephants and so on. Yes, it is so nice to hear. And I travel a lot in Africa. I travel a lot, and every time I discover new parts of it, I'm overwhelmed by the beauty and the extent of what Africa has. But what do we do about it as a continent? What do we do to rally all our forces to ensure that Africa works? I think I've lost everybody.
No, where with you?
Oh, okay.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Franca's gone. I'm not sure where Franca is.
Yeah. I think she's frozen. The picture is frozen.
Franca.
Hello, Franca.
Come back to life, Franca.
Franca, come back to life. Hello, Franca, are you there?
No, she's out now. Yeah.
Okay. But I don't know if you agree what I said, because I really believe we treat it as an activity. We don't treat it as an industry. And we need to embrace it. It's an industry that we all benefit. I mean, if you take Nigeria as a classic example, yes, it's got oil. It's a big country with a solid economy. But the oil touches the oil producers and the government and the workers in there. It doesn't touch each and every Nigerian. But tourism can touch each and every one. We must have oil. Yes, do it. But we must also embrace that industry that everybody can benefit from it. And I don't know why it's that difficult to get this message through. I mean, when Mrs. Zuma was the head of the African Union, I sat with her on an official visit she did to Seychelles. And I said, install a desk for tourism. It's the one industry where the 54 ministers can sit around with you, because this one, everybody has it. Every single one, from the desert all the way to the beach, from the islands to those that are enclosed totally inland, everyone. And yet, I mean, when you think we've got waterfalls, yes, we have it in Gabon, we have it in Zambia, Zimbabwe, we have royalties. Nobody preaches that to the world. And yet everybody does a pilgrimage to London to go and see the Queen before and now the King. We have them as well. We must be able to be proud of what we have and say, this is Africa. And this is why I liked the song in South Africa when they had the FIFA World Cup. This is Africa. But let's say it and believe in it and push it forward.
Franca, are you back? Hello, Franca.
I'm not sure. Her network is still problematic.
You can take. Okay, you can take off.
Yeah. I thank you for that extensive analysis into the matter. But if we have to look at this matter, because one can keep talking. I've been in several gatherings where we have to talk, and one thing that I have come to realize, I can't complain always. Then we have to start searching for what the problem is actually. And in my thinking, because that's the way to deal with it, in my thinking, I think majority of the African countries needs to be retutored on how to turn. It is happening, even so in entertainment. We are yet to understand how to turn our culture practices into products.
Yes.
And that is a big factor, because what you are not capable of turning into culture, into product, that means you are not ready for the market. It remains just like we do all over Africa, cultural beauty, cultural aesthetics, our ways, not necessarily anything that must be part of the business architecture. And this is a big factor. As simple as it seems, this is the same reason the entertainment industry, right? We feel it's big in Africa. But the impact of it financially is not percolating, whether in governance or otherwise. What you hear of it is the individual successes. Even they are not even able to design a special tax incentives for the industry. So this is a big thing that we have to look at and begin to speak in this direction, because most of the African countries are really in debt, yet they have a whole lot of things that can bring money, that can show up the economy. But you see, the problem is they are not seeing it in most of African countries. And I'll make Nigeria an example. I'm an expert in the industry, practice of 30 years, so both administratively and as a creative. And I see all of this. And I keep telling myself, until we are able to understand the place of product, we have close to 500 cultural festivals in Nigeria alone. Across Nigeria, we have, if not more, cultural festivals. What have we been able to do, even cultural festivals, not to talk of the sites, tourism sites that we have all over the place? Traditional tourism sites, contemporary tourism sites, educational tourism sites. They keep coming up every day. But one area that I keep wondering is, have we been able to sit around the table and say, how do we bring this thing to be product? Because until we begin to talk of product, we may not be able to talk of the marketing of it. And largely from what I have seen, from all my studies, right, tourism survives only in a very orderly environment. Mr. Allen talked of when they come into the airport the other time, the taxis are well laid, the streets are, yes. Tourism survives only in an orderly environment. These are issues that Africa needs to grapple with, where we begin hospitality. Hospitality business is tourism. It's very myopic. It's very myopic and very pedestrian. But that's what you see across Africa, that a whole lot of people involved in the business of tourism, that's what you see them talk about, hospitality business. Let me leave it here.
Maybe before, okay. Mr. Paulinus, before you say something, I just want to take one point that was made. And I think you are right, what you say. You are totally right. But when we look at tourism, what is really tourism? Yes, the natural attributes that we have, we call them USPs, the unique selling points, but also the people of our country. Because the people of our country gives a dimension to tourism that nobody can give. And that's because the people makes the culture, and the culture is the food, the music, the dancing, everything else that comes with it. That gives us that deep dimension. And I think Mr. Paulinus said something as well earlier about the disturbances and the insecurity of the country. Misery creates insecurity. We need to find the industry and embrace the industry, that the little man who keeps breaking a car to rob a tourist, or to keep trying to be at the airport, to instead of facilitating a tourist to ask for money to push the suitcase in. I've had it in so many countries. He does it because he's either hungry or he needs the money for something else. So why don't we find a way to embrace that one industry? We don't say to close anything else, but to add this one to the list. Add this one because the animals that you discover in the river area, the elephants and so on. He'll give you money to organize the fiestas and festivals that you do, to put your cultural assets in the forefront. It is the tourist that needs to arrive. But if we organize anything, if we have these big five or elephants alone that we have, but we don't tell the world that we have it, we have them as best kept secrets, it will never help you. Everything will be domestic only. And domestic, you're turning your own money around, and there's no new money that's coming in. We need to open Africa to the world, let people come in, find ways for them to pay. The operator pays their taxes, the government makes more money, and then everybody is happy. I'm sorry, Mr. Paulinus, I took your slot.
All right, thank you. I like to say that African countries need to borrow a leaf from the United Arab Emirates. I'm sure that a good number of us have been to Dubai, a desert area that has become a tourist center for the entire world. Then let's come back home. For the past 6 years, I have been advocating that Africa, Nigeria as a people, we need to really go back to our traditional values. The values of honesty, hard work, and integrity. Because you see, the people are the tourism that we talk about. If the tourist gets to the airport, assuming we have the elephant colony, for instance, and the tourist gets to the airport, and at the airport, staffs there are pushing him around, asking for money, and then the taxi driver who takes him from the airport to his hotel is not friendly. It gets to the hotel staff are not friendly, and that hospitality is not there. That tourist may not come back. We have a challenge, and we need a whole lot of cultural reorientation as a people. If the policy comes forth and these values are not addressed, we are likely not to make any headway. So it's important as we are planning and thinking policy and values. Values will be the icing on the cake if there's a policy. So that if a tourist is coming to Africa, to any part of Africa, that tourist is sure he or she will not be harassed. That tourist is sure that he or she won't be shortchanged. That tourist is sure that he or she is also safe in that environment where the person is going to do maybe sightseeing or whatever. So those are some of the things that we need to be looking at as a continent and as a people.
Completely. Thank you so much. Mr. Allen, thank you so much. And I'm so happy. Now I know that I'm actually dealing with men that recognizes the press. Thank you so much for holding the fort.
By my two colleagues a lot. I mean, when they bounce we all bounce it from one another.
Exactly. Thank you for holding the fort while I was having one or two issues right there. All right, let's get back to the basic, which is Mr. Inserim just made mention of showcasing our traditional values, which is actually the hallmark of the average African man or settlement. All right, now, I don't know, you guys have discussed one or two things about the media, but I would like to come in my own way now. All right, now, in developing these traditional
values.
We haven't
discussed the media.
You discussed the media.
We haven't discussed the media.
You've not discussed the media. Okay, we are still on point. All right, now, creating this environment for traditional values, all right? What is the role? Let's go down straight to the discussion now. What is the role? What does the media, what role does the media has to play in making sure that African traditional values, all right, tourist attraction, tourist sites, and all others that speaks well of this continent is brought to light in such a way that even the diaspora buys whatever we are selling for them? Because when you look at other social platforms, for example, I'm not going to mention it, but other social platforms, you see even Africans, all right, using even their ways, the ways of their mouth to pull down the continent itself, which is
Yeah.
lack of traditional values right there, like you rightly said. But in portraying a good value, portraying a good image of the African continent, what is the role of the media? Mr. Nsidem, I would like to start with you. We still get to hear
All
of the
right.
teacher's example, but let's get to hear from you first.
Yeah, thank you. I have observed, I've spent all my life working as a journalist. For the past 10 years, I've observed a trend that is quite disturbing. A good number of the young folks who venture into journalism now do not see it as a profession. They just want to eke out a living. So they don't know about ethics. They don't know the importance of the media. If a society says that you are the fourth estate of the realm, that's a huge responsibility.
Responsibility, exactly.
Yeah, fourth estate of the realm is a huge responsibility that media practitioners need to understand the position they occupy in the society. But unfortunately, not many of them know. But we're looking at the way forward. The media traditionally are agenda setters. They mold public opinion. They set the agenda for society. Be those, be those in parliament, the executive, the judiciary, those in entertainment, tourism, wherever is your sector, the media sets agenda. So we need to consciously begin a system where media practitioners will understand that tourism is a huge market and it is a shared prosperity that we all benefit from. Because, of course, if tourists begin to come in here, media practitioners who own radio, television, newspapers, they will get more money for their businesses. So they need to understand this. And then create tourism desk. You specialize tourism desk in newspapers, radio, television houses, where issues that have to do with tourism, its development, will be properly put in the front burner all the time. Then the media need to also embark on aggressive sensitization of policymakers and those who are in the industry for them to understand what the importance of tourism. And of course, going beyond that, the media, through various strategies of editorials, commentaries, features, live interviews, or what we call ad libs, for those in electronic media on a regular basis, will help to shape public opinion, will help to draw attention. I'll give you an example that I think, like now, if you open your radio every day and you hear an ad lib saying everyone benefits from tourism, join hands to build this industry, and you begin to hear that in every radio station, every television station on a regular basis, it will begin to draw attention. Yes, what we call earpiece. Earpiece in newspapers. It will begin to create awareness and then draw attention to to the importance of this particular industry.
All right, thank you. Mr. Makinde, I want you to take it from there, the importance of the media playing its role for us to start getting the best of African and in regards to the terrorism sector. Mr. Insulim just made mention of the newspaper coming, or the media itself rather, coming together to have a form of propaganda in which the best of the continents can be showcased in whatever way. Do you agree with him? I know you are into movies, more into movies than the television and the radio, but do you agree with what Mr. Nsirin just said?
Very well, very well. Yeah, I was about saying he said so much. The entire country as a whole needs to be reorientated, you know, and this is where, see, our media practitioners as it is now, they cannot give what they don't have. The orientation we have in our of ourselves and our country right now is poor, very poor. So if this must work, the government have to be deliberate on policy, right? So that the rest of the nation, the media practitioners and all of that, they would. It has to be a deliberate job. There is no way, because if we go by what is all over now, even in most of our media operations, they don't give tourism or art so much space. And that was why I was talking about it being a product the other time. You know, if it becomes the attention puller, then it works. Where the media, it's on the lips of everybody, the media, the social media, and people can only talk that way of the industry only if they know one or two things, only if they are orientated in that way. So it's a huge task. This is where, and this percolates even into the policy, the type of policy that comes on, where we don't even understand the policy, we don't understand the product. How then do we take it to the next level? So for me, I totally agree with what my colleague said earlier. It is important that the media, right, comes big on this for it to be able to resonate to the international world. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Allen, I'll still take the same question back to you. You know, earlier you shared with us the Seychelles example, the Seychelles and success story. Would you say that the media in your country was instrumental to the success you had at your time?
Yes, I think the success of tourism is to be able to tell areas that you're trying to get tourists from that you exist. If you can't tell them that you exist, you will be an unknown entity by yourself. I mean, when I was in charge of tourism, we had a tourism news bureau attached to the ministry. And the duty of that news bureau was to issue daily information. But if you just create and you've got no database to send to, it's also useless. So you need to have your database so that you can send the releases that you are producing to them. But I take the points of my two colleagues, and I like to put the cat amongst the pigeon and see what you say. If we look today, open any TV channel, only thing we see is the Israel-Palestine war or Hamas war. The only thing that dominates the news, morning, midday, afternoon, evening, and
exactly,
because it is sensational. It is sensational, there's a war. In America, somebody yesterday shot a few people, and that person, immediately we get to know the life history of the man. He becomes a star. He's as good as a film star, because we all know his name, where he was, which part of the army, what he's done, the size of his gun, and so on. The media will only play what is sensation. Our responsibility as Africa, and as every African country, must be to tell the world what we have. And this is why, Franca, I think you will remember I spoke that Africa should have a way to disseminate or to rewrite its own narrative about what is Africa. What is Africa? What is Africa's tourism? What is Africa's culture? What is Africa's food? What is Africa's music? What is Africa's dancing? And keep going on. How many people, if we did a survey, how many people can tell you the 54 states, what it is? How many have visited a few of them? And when you start looking at it, you will realize we all speak about Africa, but in reality, some of us are shy that we come from that continent. Me, I spend my time, I mean, in a couple of weeks, I'll be in your country, I'll be in Nigeria. And I have been already to the Akaba Festival with Ikeche, the renowned journalist in Nigeria, Ikeche Uko. And I'll be back. I'll be back in Nigeria in November. But we must know Africa to be able to talk about Africa. We must understand tourism to be able to talk about tourism. We must be able to talk about culture if we know culture. If we just play a guitar by ourselves, this is not culture. You are just a guitarist by yourself. To appreciate culture, you must understand it, go deep inside its roots, and try and tell the other people in the world, this is the rich African culture. The food we have, I mean, I spent time in Ghana. The food that we have is unbelievable, the African food. And yet, does the world get to know about it? Very few. But if we were writing our own narrative about what we are, what we have, what we offer, we will be able to bring a new dimension to just sun, sea, and sand, or the big, or shooting an animal and paying a sum of money. These are all the frills of it, but the core message that we need to get through. This is why earlier I said the best organization to bring us together. When I say us, to bring the countries together and to bring the ministers or the head of state to say, let us move forward as a continent. When there's a tourism trade fair, there'll be one now in the next week and a half in London, the World Travel Market. Do you think you have a big hall that says, this is Africa as you come in? We are broken down sometimes in different parts of it. We need, as Africa, to really grab ourselves and to grab our leaders and say, we need our tourism to work. It is not just a milking cow. It is an industry that we all have to respect because it employs so many of our people. We need to give it the breath of fresh stimulus that enables it to spread its wings, to fly high, and to make our continent work.
All right, you just talked about the CHS example using the media to draw attention to the tourism sector in your country. I think that was a very good one. But I would like to take the same question back to Mr. Nsirin. All right, we all know that the media itself complains of different constraints. But nowadays, when you look at it, almost everyone in the country has become journalists, sensational journalists, as I would like to put it. Now, do you think the media not being able to live up to its responsibility is as a result of the fact that they have constraints hindering them from not able to do what they are supposed to do? And if you think there are constraints in hindering their involvement or their development, what do you think can be done to rectify that?
You see,
Well,
we can't think of. Go ahead, Mr.
Okay. I think that saying that the reason why you will not perform your duty as a fourth estate of the realm is because of constraints will just be telling a lie. The world has become a global village.
Exactly.
And the media in Nigeria, in Africa, are not operating outside what is happening globally. If there's economic recession in Europe, there's economic recession in Africa.
Exactly.
But I can tell you, first things first. I recall whilst I was state chairman of the Nigerian Union of Journalists in Rivers State, we tried to push an amendment to the NUJ constitution to say that NUJ should not be a trade union, but should be a professional organization. So what it means is that if you are to practice as a journalist in Nigeria, you must have a basic entry qualification. That did not go through. That's why today you see NUJ with the Nigerian Labour Congress. If there's a strike, NUJ is like a labor union. We try to make NUJ look like ICANN, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, Nigerian Society of Engineers, where the basic entry qualification admits you to be a professional. We don't have that in Nigeria yet. What we have presently is that somebody can just wake up in one corner of the country and begin to be a newspaper publisher.
Exactly.
There are no standards. Yes, because of the media being capital intensive, you will need money to run an organization, especially in a country like ours where public power supply is erratic. It requires a lot of money. And in a situation where the economy is in recession, where do you get advertisement and patronage that will help you run your organization? Those challenges are there. But we're talking about the journalists themselves being professionally qualified, one. Then two, understanding their role in the society as agenda setters. Three, also understanding that there are ethical standards that govern media practice across the globe. So if we get this right, it will be easier to get professionals understand their traditional role in the society. So anybody now coming to say, the reason why we're not doing it is because we have challenges. There has not been any time there are no challenges anywhere. Whilst I was an active journalist in the field, we had challenges. So that is not really the issue. The issue is like those points I've just raised, getting that understanding for people to know that this is not an all-comers affair. It's not for every Tom, Dick, and Harry. It's a profession. To communication, you require the basic skills of communication. It's not everybody that can communicate. Somebody,
Exactly.
yeah, communication is not for everybody. So you require the basic skills to be able to communicate. So many don't have it. I'm sorry to say, many don't have the requisite skills. And of course, it's rubbing off on the standard of the practice. Several years ago, people buy newspapers to learn English language. Today, it's not the case. Journalists write stories, mix their tenses. So you can't even tell your son or your daughter to look at a newspaper to learn English language. That will be sending a very wrong signal and the wrong training for that child. So these are the issues. Yeah, these are the issues.
All right, you are obviously a retired journalist, if I could use that word. At the same time, you run an organization that is info training, all right, for journalists. Why do you think training is important? I know you've said one or two things about it, but I still want you to build more on it. What is the importance of training to these journalists as we have it now?
Yeah, that's why all my life I've been practicing. So I set up the Gracia Center for Media Rights and Education to bridge this gap that I've just told you. I believe that if journalists know their onions, they'll be able to do incisive reportage that will drive policy, that will set agenda. But if they don't have that training, it will be difficult to play that role. And we're here to bridge that gap, to give basic training to journalists in Nigeria and indeed Africa. The vision is a global vision because we want to raise an army of journalists who understand their traditional role as a fourth estate of the realm, practice according to ethical standards, and contribute meaningfully to societal growth and development. When the media embraces an agenda and does what I call scholarly presentation of facts and issues, people will take them seriously. So training and retraining. In fact, for us in the Gracia, we're also looking at exchange programs so that journalists from this part will travel to other climes and see current global trends that will help us as a continent, that will help us as a country. We're looking at mentorship, where we can get people from outside the country to do mentorship training here. So it is something that we're looking at the next 5 years. We should be able to boldly say that we'll have a crop of journalists who understand this trade and who will be contributing to the growth of Nigeria and Africa.
But that's a very good one. But I would like to you are talking about training here right in Port Harcourt, and now you agree with me that if you really want to penetrate the entire Nigeria and then the entire Africa, just training site in Port Harcourt alone will not be enough to solve the problem that we are trying to resolve answers to, or get answers to rather. All right. Now let's take a look at the advantages, okay, of medias in Nigeria, medias in Africa, for partnering with foreign media to create or give them, should I say, more visual awareness in the world stage. What is the role of partnering? What is the role of foreign medias? All right?
I understand you. Yeah, you see, I made this point earlier that the world is a global village, and the only thing that's permanent in life is change. Everything about society is dynamic. You can't be practicing journalism in 2023 the way it was practiced in 1970.
Exactly.
Now, for you to be professionally relevant, collaboration is inevitable. Whether you like it or not, those in the advanced countries, technologically speaking, are far ahead. They have technology and they are more advanced in information management and dissemination.
Exactly.
So collaboration, even as an organization, the Gracia, we are looking at foreign collaboration and partnership, because that will help those of us who are here to be able to get in tune with present day realities as it relates to practice.
All right. I don't know if Mr. Makinde is still here.
No, he
sent a message.
gone for another.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Allen, you've been a regular and a very strong voice on this platform. All right, and I still want you to lend your voice to the role, all right, of foreign medias, okay, in partnering with medias in Africa. I don't know if in Siche you have that's some success stories from doing that, but what do you think? For example, Clevenard has been here for a very long time, and we are trying to bridge these gaps, trying to bring African medias on board to showcase on the Clevenard.com platform to give them a clearer visibility. But here you still have constraints here and there. All right, Mr. Ellen, please, I need to come in there. Do you think it's important that African media do that? And if you think they do, what do you think should be done? How do you think they should go about it?
You see, no one is a prophet in his own country that can be replaced by a foreign person. It's impossible. What you say, you say it with an African heart, and you are it with an African eyes. What you will tell the world, you know you're not doing it maliciously to hurt Africa. Foreign media, want it or not, come from different big organizations that have their own political agendas. And this is clear. We watch the news daily, and you will find you can have the same story repeated in 3, 4 different ways and blaming different people about it.
Okay.
And I'm not saying they are wrong, but they are commercial entities with sensation as their biggest drawing card. Africa needs to find, I mean, if you got Al Jazeera today, that is the Middle East mouthpiece, being fought heavily by BBC or CNN because they got their own anchors there. But Africa is the one continent that has very little outside Africa. We're not able to disseminate, and yet we have Mr. Paulinus, who's a professional, an expert, retired, and then fades away into the pastures. Should that be the case? Or should we be holding his hand and saying, why don't you lead the show? Let's have a voice of Africa that is heard. That is heard because Africa needs its own voice. And I've been preaching about Africa needs to get its own narrative out to the world. Yes, we have some small ones. We have EKG in Nigeria, Wolfgang in Uganda. We have a lot of them around the place. But we don't believe enough in them. I do. I make sure that they know what I do. And they often bona fide push forward what I'm doing. But we need more. We need more. And you will like, Franca, that this afternoon, I gave your name at Clevenard to be invited to a conference soon. And I said, let's bring this TV station. Let's find a way that we can really have you interview somebody who comes, a dignitary that will come to a conference. We need to start somewhere. We would not think after all these years of emancipation of Africa, we're still at ground zero. But we must, and I am sad that now I hear that you are, after looking at your name, looking at who you are, now I understand that you are already gone to the pastures. You are grazing in a field somewhere. It is not right.
No, I'm not. I'm not grazing.
We need to keep you. We need
training people.
But training is. But why don't we head? Why can't Africa find a news organization, at least that will be played on air on 54 states of Africa? Would you see how big that will become very fast? Sometimes we knock at doors that brings little benefit to the continent. This would bring benefit to the continent. If the African Union could jump that barrier and say, okay, we will have Voice of Africa. And yes, we will have a professional like you to lead it. I'm not a pressman. I am a good marketing person and a good salesperson. But I'm not a pressman. And I would not even dream of doing something like that. But here we have a journalist who can do it, a proven person. Why can't we say, African Union will say, the Voice of Africa. And then we find ways to bring it into the Caribbean, because they have people that come from our continent. In the Americas, they have people that come from our continent. And we slowly but surely bring forward this idea that the Voice of Africa is the truthful voice of Africa, and the one that is not exaggerating. If there's Ebola in a little village somewhere in the DRC, that the whole of Africa is labeled as having Ebola. But this will happen because, but if it's us writing our own narrative and spilling our narrative to the world will be better informed. And I don't know, I keep praying for that to happen, but if we all say it, sooner or later it will happen. I am sure of it.
I really share in your sentiment, Mr. Allen, this evening. And I think that it is something that we need to work on. We need to work on it. We need to tell our own story as a people, as a continent. And like we were saying, we need to have our leaders also have understanding about the power of the media. Like you are saying, Voice of Africa. Voice of Africa will resonate with any African across the globe. It will resonate with any African across the globe. And it's a dream that will come true. I believe it will come true. But again, the African leaders, media practitioners, and all those who are involved in entertainment and all whatnot, I need to have this common shared objective about what this can achieve for us, and that we can get there in the next 5 years is possible.
But when you say sharing common and objective, do you really think that is possible with the kind of media, difference in medias we're having? Let's even use the Nigerian example. Is that really possible, bringing all the medias together to share a common objective?
Yeah, what we're talking about here is you're keeping politics aside, you're keeping tribe aside, you're keeping religion aside. We're saying, what are those common denominators that we should project as a continent, i.e., our tourism potentials, for instance? Can we come together under one umbrella and have a database of tourism potentials in Africa and begin to project them as a people? And can we get both policymakers, those in the legislature, the academia, the media, to have an understanding that, look, if we speak with one voice as a continent, we're likely to grow our GDP, we're likely to reduce unemployment, the poverty level will go down, crime rates will go down, because you see, these are indices of growth and development. And having that shared understanding of that shared objective can help us to drive this as a continent.
All right, so whose responsibility is it to, let me use the word bear the cat now. Who does this bring it together? Who holds that responsibility?
Franca, if I can say 2 words on this, I think it is not one single person's responsibility. It will never be. It has to be Africa's responsibility. Africa's responsibility has been given to our heads of state, and they have given the responsibility, though they don't have the power to take the stick with us, is the African Union. We must start in there. We talked today about Univisa, Africa passport, Africa currency, trade agreements amongst Africa. But we don't talk about an African media. An African media that informs Africa, firstly, about what Africa does. This is important, even though we have, I mean, like you, we have professionals in Africa that could take that stand, and every day, 6 o'clock news, this is Voice of Africa.
Wow.
Can you imagine how nice it would be? I mean, the other day, Ruto in Kenya called a big meeting, and I listened to him on the world news, a few seconds. But Africa News would have given President Ruto, and that big call that he made, Africa to rally for the environment and so on, given him the due respect and the time needed. We don't do it because we are fighting for the same little slot against all the presidents of the world, against all the battles that are taking place in the world that takes control of the news. Let us have ours first. And then we can say in the news, now we move to our sports and we'll find Bafana or whatever, or the team of Africa playing football or rugby or everything else. And then you'll find our artists. Let them break Africa wide. Today they have more problems to break Africa wide because they don't get the platform to break into it. We should go back to basics. Stop following the world, but go back to basics ourselves and say, how do we capture Africa and then capture the world after that? We are lucky. We have a big diaspora around the world. And the minute that you launch a TV that is Africa-wide, everyone will subscribe to receive it. And before you know, that'll be a known entity that'll appear on TV screens around the world. But it needs to start at our own governments, but more so at the African Union, because they've been mandated to bring Africa together. Bring Africa not just to find the problems, but bring Africa to also find the solutions to move us forward.
All right, I think for now it should be all eyes on African Union. We don't even know how we should go about that, but all eyes
Nobody
on
knows,
the
but that's the
African
problem.
Union. Mr. Nsirim, please let's
Our
get to hear
pressmen should.
That's what?
I
let's
said,
get
you
to
should
hear
know.
your views on that, about African Union standing up to its responsibility.
Oh yeah. You know what has happened over the years is that people don't understand the advantage of having a regional bloc. Europeans do. That is why you find that there is xenophobia, for instance.
Yeah.
Because Africans don't have that understanding of us being a regional brand.
Mm.
Do you know what it means for the entire continent to come together to say we want an African network? It will send shivers down the spines of people across the globe, because you're coming to speak with one voice. You have a shared prosperity you're projecting. You have a common agenda. You have a common objective that will translate to boosting the continent's economy. Because when you come together under that umbrella, trade and commerce will flow freely among the sister countries. So it's something that our leaders need to begin to dream about. Like Mr. Allen said earlier, you shouldn't just come together when there's a coup d'etat or to talk about problems. The time has come for the AU to be the centerpiece of the propagation of policies and programs that will make Africa stand out in the committee of continents in the world. We should begin to hear from AU development plans for the continent that will run across the various sectors of our economy. Development plan that every country in Africa will need to buy into. We shouldn't just hear about AU when there's a crisis in the continent. No. Every group of people that want to grow have a plan. I don't think we have that in Africa. That's why we are more of crisis managers. But that should change. if we are to become relevant in the scheme of things.
You know the success of the regional bodies, East Africa Community, SADC, the West Africa Community, the Central African Community, the North African Community. They succeed because there's only them. There's nobody from the outside. It is them thinking about themselves first. But if now we took the chairman of each of these regional bodies and we brought them together and said, sit together. You are all Africans, but from north, east, south, west, sit together now. Let us start looking at things that you said. How do we move the agenda of Africa forward? I think that would be a start. It's only when you were talking that I realized, yes, we have different things, BRICS and all sorts of other bodies, but it is always being pushed with the agendas of other people. But if we had one for Africa by Africa, East African Community, Southern Africa, SADC, Northern Africa, Western Africa, Central Africa, if all these bodies sent their chairman to a conference and said, okay, now we will talk about Africa this time.
Exactly.
You know how strong that would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can only throw ideas. Franca, you need to push the ideas forward. That's your job, not mine.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Allen. Thank you, Mr. Asirim. I think that's all time will permit us for today's edition. If Mr. Mankinde had been on with us, I think we'll have said one or two things about NAMTAB and then his contribution towards developing the sector and the current partnership they are having with Clevenard.com. But unfortunately, he's not here, and we do hope next edition definitely he or a representative from his department can be on the set with us to discuss that. We thank the ATB, the African Tourism Board, Minister of Sechi, Dr. Allen, thank you so much for lending your voice to all that have been having on Clevenard.com. We also say a big thank you to the South Sudan Minister of Tourism. Two editions back, he was here with us to discuss how to develop the sector in South Sudan. All right, we'll draw the curtain here for today. And once again, Mr. Allen, I say thank you so much. And Mr. Ansere, thank you for being my guest this evening.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Frank.
We have to pull you away from the pastures. You can't be in a grazing way. We need to pull you back.
Thank you very much. It's nice meeting Dr. Allen, and we'll see how we'll be doing a lot of collaborations in future.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. All the best. Thank you,
audience,
for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
We have,
Bye.
yeah, we draw the curtain here for today, this evening. Till next edition, I remain Frank Idemida. Do have a blessed evening. Bye.